The Conjuring is a 2013 horror film directed by James Wan and stars Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren work to help a family terrorized by a dark presence in their farmhouse. I remember hearing a lot of talk about this horror film back in 2013. It was one of the biggest and most influential paranormal films of its time, and it expanded into this big juggernaut of a horror franchise that, if I remember correctly, is actually the biggest and highest grossing horror franchise of all time, with most of these films making absurd amounts of money, especially for a scary movie like what they are. R-rated horror films, all culminating in like over $1 billion of gross now. That was a bit unheard of, and the Conjuring franchise was able to tap into something that not a lot of horror franchises, even back in the day with a lot of slashers and the monster stuff, they weren't able to reach this big of a success. And so, rewatching The Conjuring the other day, I came to find out that this was just a horror film that just told a simple story, but told it with very effective scares with really engaging characters, which are the two things you need in order for any investment of a horror film like this. Ed and Lorraine Warren, played by Patrick and Vera here, are really likable characters. You really do feel their love for one another. Their chemistry is off the charts. You really felt like these are people you can trust in a situation like this. They do feel skepticism whenever something like this does come into their office, when some sort of paranormal thing happens. And the opening sequence with the Annabelle doll and how it basically exemplifies their job and what they do is a great introduction. Not only does it give you enough of an idea of what the scares are going to be like throughout the film, but how the main characters operate and what you could expect from them with their chemistry and love for one another, and how they will do whatever they can to help out family in need who is legitimately terrified of whatever paranormal thing happens. You really do feel engaged with them off the bat. The opening scene does a really great job of that. And James Wan does a great job directing all the horror sequences throughout the entire film. Whenever a bump comes up at the night, you feel the tension in the room. You feel the atmosphere creeping in your spine, and you're unsure of what's actually happening. And when a scare does come around, it doesn't feel like a false jump scare of sorts. Something always feels like it's building up to something proper, and it just keeps building and building. That tension just gets higher and higher the further this family is terrified. And once the Warrens do come around to try and exercise whatever paranormal activity is happening here, you feel the tension because you're already seeing what they're able to do with the paranormal and how they deal with that. But when something does feel a bit tougher than what they're used to, you feel a bit scared about them because you spend a good amount of time with not just the family that is terrified, you really care about the family, but you also care about the Warrens. You spend enough time with them and to understand them as characters, because those are two characters we follow all throughout. And Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga do an excellent job, especially in the sequences of horror when they have to exercise the ghost. Whenever something feels tougher for them than usual, you feel that tension rise and rise, and that's what made you care about the characters. That you feel for them, you understand them, you understand their fears, their wants, their goals, their love for one another. And so by the end of the film, when everything comes to a head, you are tensed up, you feel scared, because that's where the horror just comes out at you, and you're trying to figure out how these characters are going to get out of here alive, how how the Warren's gonna save his family. How is the film gonna end? Is it gonna be a happy ending or a sad ending? And overall, it just culminated in a horror film that I could very much describe as a horror classic. With all the paranormal stuff that happens throughout the film, there is a good amount of fun with all the scare sequences, but you do get just enough characterization with the Warrens for you to care about these characters for multiple films. Even with the characters are in like lesser films, you still feel like you're having a good and fun enough time because it's the Warrens. They are fun characters to follow throughout this entire franchise, and every time they show up in one of these films, or whenever a new Conjuring, like a pure Conjuring movie, not a spin-off, comes around, I'm always more excited for that because I am more invested in the Warrens. So, with all that being said, great direction, great production design and music and atmosphere, great horror sequences as well. The Conjuring is a pure horror classic I can recommend to any horror fan, and I'm going to give The Conjuring an A. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time.